Hello, Chione here. If you're tuning in from the Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast, we've got something extraordinary for you. Be sure to catch Amy Wild's powerful conversation about animal past lives on the March 24th episode of the Past Lives Cafe podcast, and then take your connection even further. For a limited time, podcast listeners get 22% off Amy Wild's self-paced course, Connecting with Your Animal in Spirit. Just visit www.spectralcommunications.com and use code QUANTUM at checkout to claim your savings. Don't wait. This is your moment to deepen the bond with your beloved companion on the other side. Welcome to the Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast, a space where all spiritual seekers are honored and celebrated. This podcast was born from the journeys of your hosts, who have each faced her own dark night of the soul, but they've emerged with an unshakable belief in divine connection, cosmic inspiration, and her true life's calling. Join us on a journey of personal growth, transformation, and magical self-discovery. Your first co-host is Chloe Brown, a gifted intuitive empath and shadow work life coach. Your second co-host is Chione Starr, an intuitive energy worker and acclaimed past life regressionist. The Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast starts now. Welcome to the Mystical Mermaid Lounge podcast. We are so excited today to share with you Susan Bischak. Hello.
Thank you both for having me on today. It's such a pleasure to be able to speak with you about these interesting topics, what's going on, and there's a lot to talk about.
Yes, there is.
Yes, I am Chloe, and I have my lovely co-host Chione with us. Hello. I am so happy to see you again, Susan, and I know this conversation is going to be amazing.
I'm looking forward.
Yes. So, Susan is a spiritual communicator, a past life regressionist, a medium, an author of Healing a Desperate Heart, an energy practitioner who is certified in many techniques that we will cover, and she offers in-person and virtual sessions, and we will absolutely have her website in our show notes. It is susanbischak.com. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited.
Me too.
Okay. So if you wouldn't mind, we would love to just dive right in a little bit. If you wouldn't mind sharing with us and our listeners, what brought you to where you're at now? A little bit of your spiritual journey, if you wouldn't mind, please.
Well, there was a hint that there would be a spiritual journey a long time ago when I was 12. And I told Leslie, so I'm visiting my grandparents. Next door, I have some cousins. All my cousins are playmates. We don't go to grandma's and hang out and have a wonderful time running through the old barns and the fields and orchards and stuff like that. So anyway, my mother said, all right, so my grandmother asked that I stay with her for a week, which was, okay. So I'm there, but my mother said before I left, so if the neighbors next door, if Maria Elena and Dorothy go off with their parents, then why don't you go help grandma somehow? So that day came. And so I'm thinking, what can I do for her? I'm walking from the other house across the property and I say, okay, I can take in her laundry. So I fold in the laundry, and it was kind of novel for me because we didn't hang out our laundry. All right. So I go into the doorway from the back of the house, and you kind of enter the kitchen, and then I went to the left to the living room to fold the laundry on the sofa there. So on the other side in the kitchen is my grandmother and her sister, who I have no idea are very gifted, because they didn't talk about it because the priest said this is bad. And they just did it quietly to help people. And that's it. They didn't ask for a dime. It's just, they got what they got, and they didn't know from where, and it was always helpful. So anyway, I'm there folding stuff. And then my mind is open now when you understand hypnosis. people are open to suggestion. I was absolutely open for suggestion. What should I do now? So my grandmother's on the other side of the wall saying, go get the dustpan and clean the stairs, going upstairs. And I got the message. So they're both watching me walk around the table to get to the door, the pantry that had that in it. And then I go back to the steps. I'm about to do it. I turn around and there they are. And I go, why are you standing there? And they go, my grandmother said, actually, I've been watching you. You're different than your cousins. And I go, I don't know what that means. Was that good, bad, whatever? And then she just said, you're an old soul, and walked away. She wanted to know who had her gift. And that was the test. So I'm 12 years old, not know what she was trying to convey to me.
That's so cool.
And then we started playing with the Ouija board, because if Aunt Rita has a Ouija board, it must be okay. So I could get on it, and right away it was flying all over the place, giving messages like crazy. Depending on who got on as to how well it would, be all these girly cousins. Am I going to marry him? Stuff like that. Goofy stuff. We'd ask all kinds of questions, but we got it to turn a light on in another room to prove to us, okay, that this is real. And then we got them to turn it off because two cousins, well, one was my brother and the other room said, this isn't real. My brother's a Capricorn, my brother Kirk. So like, this is not real. This is not scientific. And we all go, yeah, but it happened. So anyway, it turns out, I figured out years later, I never met her. My grandmother's mother lived in the house, and so was her. And she was just having a really fun time with all the giggly little 12-year-old, little 11-year-old, 10. We were all kind of around the same age. And but here's the kicker. I'm remembering now. One of them was, can you tell me who I'm going to marry, right? So I got the initials, WB. Okay. And I go, oh, is that like Walter Brennan from this old show called The Real McCoys? I'm like, I don't think so. And I forgot about it until many years later. I'm like, taking a break from one college then to go to the next. And the summer job was, we were all meeting in the lunchroom. And the subject came up. I didn't start it, about Ouija boards. And I go, yeah, we had experience with that. And it said I was going to marry somebody WB. And I go, I've been throwing him away like 3 times. You're not what I wanted. And no, this isn't going to work out. I've been married to him for 44 years.
What?
WB, Walter Bischak.
That's awesome.
And I was to remember on cue, right, that they happen to bring up this subject. This is not an everyday subject in the lunchroom.
Right.
Anywhere. And then I go, oh, yeah, WB. And I go, oh, I'm dating him right now. Maybe I should look at this a little differently. They didn't want me to miss marrying WB.
That's awesome.
Funny.
I love
funny
that.
Stuff.
I immediately thought of the Warner Brothers, the Looney Tunes. So that is adorable.
Yeah, I'm going to marry a Looney Tune. No, he's a good guy.
How does his name is William, right?
Walter.
So how does Walter take your gifts? How does he feel about it?
He went as far as joining me when I was doing the mediumship classes in the same town I'm in now. Actually, I ended up in the same town where the teacher is, and he's still around, but he hasn't been teaching for years. But anyway, he's an American spiritualist. It was someone that I was at work with that said, maybe I'd like to learn that. I had trained in Reiki, whatever, and I'm still interested in these kinds of things. So it was a really easy class as far as not pressuring you. Simply, we just called it a circle. The whole idea of seance is like, okay, here we go with the old movies and the creepy stuff. So that was a great learning experience without any pressure. It's like you just go around the room, everybody take a chance. Do you have anything? And always give what you get. That's the bottom line. The teacher of the one I was in a class with, his teacher and the husband had run the First Spiritualist Church of Paterson, New Jersey. And one of their star pupils was this guy that I'm studying with, had been. So there's a different style than the British, who want evidence, then the message. The message is secondary to every service where they have connections in order to make everyone understand that you do have other lives and you will have another life after this one. That's the main thing about the spiritualist church. That's number one. So that's what they want to, and on a Sunday service, that's what they want to convey. So anyway, I did go on and study at Arthur Findlay for a week. It was a great experience to do that. That's the original Hogwarts that is the original place.
Yes,
That's what inspired her to start the idea of this school. Yeah, there's been a school there. It was an estate of someone and they donated it for this school to happen. And it's an enormous place. It's huge hallways and huge stairwells to go up and down and stained glass windows and property and really cool. Yeah. So I stayed there for a week and studied, and it was a wonderful experience. And there's people like John Holland probably spent a lot of time there and probably got a job locally to do that. So many people have studied there that now. I didn't become any big name, but I wanted the experience. So it was good, is what I'm saying. I studied with some other people right here that came over from England because the Spiritualist Church in Pompton Lakes would host them many, many times. So I could still, and Canadian, and I went to another group and there was an Australian lady that was teaching. Everybody seems to really go with the British style, except the American spiritualists. They're not so big on evidence, but you get evidence. Just get evidence while you're talking. It's going to pop in there and you try to get, understandings, but it doesn't necessarily have to be what they're thinking is evidence. It's just say what you get is the bottom line. The big thing in that original class, so I learned that. It's no, I'm not going to say scooter pie. You know those snacks? It's called a scooter pie. It was chocolate-covered graham crackers with marshmallow, and it was a huge snack or like a treat in my household. So this lady had visited, and we're all trying to get something about her son that passed away. And I'm getting scooter pies. No, you can't say that. So it goes around again. No, I can't say that. And it goes the third time. So that's it. So I know if it's going to go 3 times around, you say it. I go, scooter pies? Oh my gosh, it was his favorite snack. You loved them. Oh my gosh. And there's your evidence. Scooter pies.
Yeah.
It's not, I keep telling people it's not, I'm telling myself, it's not my memory. It's their memory. So it doesn't matter what it seems like to me. It's not any part of my reality. It's what they need to hear. And then see what happens. And it's usually what they needed.
And sometimes,
I was going to say, I remember doing a mediumship class. And I remember that, feeling like you're getting disjointed, in my case, pictures. And I remember seeing an orange, like a piece of fruit orange.
Yeah.
And a school bus. And I thought, oh, if I say this out loud, these people are going to think I'm crazy. And so I eventually, it was kind of like, if you don't say this, you're not going to get anything else. That's the feeling I got, go with this. So I said it, and then I said it, and then I saw a cornfield, and then it went on from there. So afterwards, the person had told me that they lived in Orange County, California, and they were a teacher of school-age children who had to take the school bus, and many of them were in rural areas where the bus would have to go past cornfields, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So there is a story there, but when you're first getting this information, you're thinking, how in the world does this even relate? But the people that you're talking to know it. But scooter pie is a lot tasty. That's tasty.
Many times in a session with someone, all this stuff will just kind of float in. I make sure I mention it, and then they go, I can't, not sure about that. And either by the end of the session, it all comes together, right? And fit the puzzle pieces fit. Or I'll get a call later. It's like, oh, that was his favorite beer.
That's exactly what I was thinking earlier is, I know I don't offer my services publicly, but, like Chione had mentioned in this pre-conversation that we had, I've been working on a lot of these things and making sure I feel comfortable before I, launch it off to the world and as available, I should say. And one of the things I've learned, not only as the person sitting at the other side of the table, but also as trying to convey messages sometimes, is that it's those little things, just like you said. And even if the sitter doesn't understand it immediately, it comes full circle when it needs to. And the best example, I'll keep real short, is I had a phenomenal reading with a medium who is just fabulous. And he kept feeling this energy and he kept saying, maybe it's my ego. I just feel this energy. And he kept saying it, but he had planted the seed that maybe it was his ego. And because, I wanted to connect with who I wanted to connect with, and I had my own agenda in my mind as the sitter, what he was saying was so above my head, I didn't even process it. I think it took me like 8 months, 9 months. And one day I was just honestly having a conversation with Chione and I was, oh my gosh. And I had to reach back out to him and tell him it wasn't your ego. Like both of us were so quick to say, no, that's not right. And that was a huge, powerful lesson for me, not only as the sitter, but as somebody who delivers messages. Just be authentic and know what you're getting and just repeat it, because I'm not here to understand it. I am just the facilitator. I'm just, the room that's making it happen, essentially.
Yeah, don't shoot the messenger, they say. Yeah, there is a challenge, like you mentioned, Leslie, about the orange. And so I'll get symbols like an apple. I have the nutrition background. Are they supposed to be eating apples? Or are we talking about a teacher? Which is
Or
it?
was it their favorite food? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, he ate a lot of apples and his favorite one was whatever. Yes, the discernment. Like, all right, like the one I said, it was his favorite beer. Okay, what was one of the many things that we got along there was like, I'm looking at a kangaroo. I go, I don't think we're going to Australia here. But look at that kangaroo. It's like a drawing, or it's not a photograph. And so it ended up being that way when I was looking closely because it was the label, the beer.
Yes, interpreting signs is, from my personal thoughts, probably one of the most challenging parts of learning any of this.
Yeah, you don't want to mess up. So I'm very like, I'm always like, before I open my mouth, because I'm not just a constant, because I'm getting something and I have to figure out, what is this? How do I present this? What do I say? I got to know what it is. Yeah. So that's tricky. That is. And I'm being prompted now because it was on my mind again, probably for the podcast. Anyway, it was yesterday. There's someone, a dentist I happen to know, and he sent a couple people to me for mediumship. And both of them come in the door with, one was a so-and-so going to give up that money that I think he owes my brother. All right, that's one of them. That's why he came for mediumship. And then the other one came in, I'd like to know about, I'd like another job. And these are not mediumship sessions. So I don't well, I'll still want to give them their answer. And I did. And they were like, I don't know, and grumbling. I wrote a letter to the dentist, like, I don't care if he doesn't send me any more people, but I wanted to explain. I said, the way I was taught way back, as I'm saying, the original class is, if it's not a reading, if it's something that it's not a mediumship reading, if it's something someone wants to know about our reality. If Uncle Fester didn't know much about finances, why would you be getting messages from him to pay attention to about investing?
Exactly.
And why would they know about the job market? So it became an intuitive reading. I don't use cards usually. I mean, it's there. Someone said, that's the dog and pony show. You have something, because they think the cards are magical. No, they're prompting, they're tools. They're not necessarily a must. And going back to my grandmother, I figured out years later, after her passing, one of her daughters said, well, didn't you know that she gave readings when she lived in the Bronx? Everybody knew in the neighborhood to go see Lizzie, her nickname, if you had something that was on your mind and you needed to talk. So she'd have them sit in the kitchen, they'd have a cup of coffee. And I'm thinking, how did she do that? So I know she's listening to the person talking while she's listening for the message. And then boom, it would come out. I go, yeah. So that's how I do my intuitive readings. I'm listening to them while listening to the spiritual. This person came for help. I'll do my best to help them. They each got answers and more than they expected. And I said, you don't have to pay. Oh, I'm going to pay. Okay. I mean, I did my job. It's just like, it wasn't appropriate for mediumship. And that's what I explained to the dentist. In the end, they got what they came for. It just wasn't a mediumship experience.
But your great grandmother did tell you who you would marry.
Yes, she did. She did. WB.
That's so cool. I can't get over that.
But that
And it's something that had like amnesia for all those years until I was dating him and they didn't want me to throw him away again. I mean, we met and we were like, oh, you're a bitch. I kept pretending that the boyfriend that just dumped me was still an item. And because I wasn't interested at all. And it was his birthday. It was July 4th and he was high as a kite. So that was our original meeting.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's funny, Susan.
It was a blind date.
Like everything that you would not possibly go for, all wrapped up, and then he ends up being this perfect.
I was like, trying my best to repel him.
That is so funny. I could say the same almost down to the details about my husband. So that is really funny. I, like the plague, tried to avoid the connection I felt for 8 years. It's like, oh no, I'd always lie and say that I was with somebody else. And but I'd go fishing every day. I had no problem fishing with him.
See, there you go. We became buddies is what happened. I didn't have a lot going on. So like we just get together and do stuff. And that's all.
That's
beautiful. Then I realized I could be 100% myself with him because I didn't care.
Yes. Actually, that brings up a question I had for you that you brought up a little bit earlier with Chione's fabulous question was he always on board with you and willing to go to
back to that? Yes. So that's how we got to the beginning mediumship class. And actually we kind of dubbed him the sleeping prophet because he'd often fall asleep, Edgar Casey style, you know, because to practice, we're just sitting around in a darkened room just so that we'd focus on what's in our brain instead of what's in the room. So anyway, he would like, oh, I just see you're getting some kind of injury. And we come back the next week and he'd say, yeah, I was playing tennis and sprained my ankle. You're absolutely right. And we'd be 100% right. He is very intuitive and that helped him in work, finding the needle in the haystack, the problem solver with programming. He's the one that they would call. Said, Walter, got one, you know. That's where he can apply. So he's a sign of Cancer, whatever that is. But, you know, as far as intuition. But he said that's as far as he wanted to go. And you were reading the Jane Roberts books, you know, about Seth together. And he took all that in. And then he just, you know, focused on other things that he was more interested in. That's okay. But he understood then what I was doing.
Yes.
And that's very big. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's huge.
Yeah. Not only
that helps a lot,
but accepted that as being just an amazing part of who you are.
Yeah.
It's, you know, my thing to explore and my self-enrichment. And so there's classes I just kept taking. And many times I'd go away for a weekend or a week or whatever in order, like, I don't know. And I don't think you're different than me. You just have to get with a group of people at times to just talk about this stuff because you can't talk to your neighbor about it. And there's a lot of people, you know, superficially, but you just can't go there.
That is how Chione and I met. Actually, I just needed a group of like-minded individuals. And I was like, oh my God, I just found my BFF.
Yeah. Well, like my cousin, we have all these cousins and she's really adamant. She wanted to ask everyone, don't you ever get messages? Susan and I do. And my cousin Dorothy, and they say, yeah, but we don't pay attention to it. So, you know, it's the idea that it's there, but you would have to pay attention and work on it. And I tell people, it's like someone's whispering in your ear, and they're trying to communicate. But finally, if you just don't want to hear them, you won't. And that's it. No one can make you do that. She was one that would wake up in her crib and yell across the hall, Mom and Dad, there's a guy in there, there's a man in my room. She's still in a crib. And they say, you know, shut up, go to sleep, right? There's nobody in the room. But there is.
Was the era. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we've paired up to do mediumship together, which was fun because we did something that we didn't know was possible, which I brought up when I was training in England. So what is it when you both can see the same thing? Like she saw this guy, and then I'm tuning in and I go, is he like, he's got just a white t-shirt on, he's got kind of a buzz cut, and he's standing by a motorcycle. She goes, yeah, that's him. I'm like, oh, wow.
Cool.
We can share the same guy. Like, okay, so we're both talking about the guy. And we did it some other times
That's
that we know
so
we could do
cool.
that. Yes, it is.
So
Wow.
who's seeing who, or are you both seeing the same energy?
We're seeing the same person during a group mediumship session. So Mike, or whatever his name was, we're both zeroing in on Mike.
You were both zeroing in on his physicality as opposed to you're seeing what she's seeing. You're both seeing it at the same time.
We're both seeing it. So I could describe it so she'd know that it's the same person.
Gotcha.
And then like, okay, and then on to whatever we're going to get for the message, which is good. There's a lot of, and because of the mediumship and being so used to that and remembering in a session of regression to past lives that, yeah, grandma said you were telepathic. Let's put it to the test. So this is jumping on to one of the other things, but it's linking to that. It's because of my trainings. This is what happened. I usually have people go, and I only will do it in person. If you're not in person with me, I'm not doing it. I will have no idea if you're suddenly starting to be quiet because you're breathing heavily and you're freaking out. And I have no idea because you can't communicate because you are freaking out. I have to be with you. Absolutely. Or I don't think it's ethical. I mean, a lot of people do it over the phone. No, not doing it because one person really did freak out and we just had to stop. I knew it was coming. See, this is the thing I could see. When you go where you want to go, I can see where you are. So and I can get details maybe that you didn't get. I might express them, or I'll just be good that I know what's going on. I want to be like present. I want to, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
yeah.
I
I just want to know what's going on here. What kind of situation you're in to understand it and help you understand it better. So there was one case, I'm going along and this lady says, okay, I'm in a one-room schoolhouse, but there's nothing in there. There's nothing at all. I'm seeing there's a desk in front of her with two boys on it. And, the long kind with the ink wells, and there's two people at each desk. And they're right in front of her. And she said, I don't see it. Like, okay, here's the test. Let me just intend that the image in my head goes to her head. It didn't take like a minute. She goes, oh, there's these two boys sitting in front of me at a desk. And I know who they are. That's, Robert, whatever, she knew them immediately. Okay. And that's what we did in the one-room schoolhouse. But didn't that then firmly establish belief for her that there are past lives? That was the whole point of being in that one-room schoolhouse. And I didn't want her to miss it.
Yep. And it's subtle, right? Sometimes when you're doing these regressions, you're thinking, am I thinking this or is this person thinking that? Who's coming up with this image sometimes? But I agree with you 3,000% about, especially if you're going deep into a regression, you need to be there in person, especially when it gets near the time of the death of that individual, which they inevitably see, especially if they're doing QHHT, because that was Dolores Cannon's whole healing proposition, right? And I shouldn't say nobody, generally people don't have great deaths, at least the people that I see. And some do, but for the most part, there's something tragic or traumatic. So you need to be there.
Yeah.
To help them. But there's a lot of pushback now. Clients don't want to have to travel. They want to use technology.
Yeah. Well, because of that first time that it came up and I was in person. Yeah, I absolutely know I have to be there.
Smart move.
I mean, I could tell you this whole scenario, but the point was I just have to be in person with them.
Yep.
I mean, considering I did that by distance, though, with the biofield tuning, right, with my friend Amy, but the reality is she knew what was going on. And she said it's okay to continue so that she would understand who was connecting. That was the point of that experience for her. So that was all good. That was okay. That wasn't an intended regression. It just became part of it. Because when I'm in someone's field, I'm picking up. Now we have the concept, right, that time is not linear. So I can pick up someone's past life. I can pick up, certainly little vignettes of what happened in this life. And I could have this whiteboard over on one side of my brain with a word, and that will be my big clue. And then another time I'm just like right on getting a little mini video where I see you struggling in the water, and you're like, so you're about 12 years old and somebody comes to help you. And oh yeah, that was my friend. I still know him. He lives in Georgia. No, maybe you should call him. It seems like he was saving your life somehow. But just a little snippet of things. So to know when you're going through an energy field, it was so bizarre, right? Like that energy I'm feeling has a whole scene connected to it. Wow, encapsulated in that little bit of energy.
Yeah, it sounds like you've had quite the diverse field of not only training, but experiences. Would you be comfortable talking about the different modalities that you've either tried and loved, maybe you still use, ones that didn't fit for you well? Just let us get to know you a little bit more.
I started with, forget the Ouija board part. But there you go, synchronicities. There I am. I've had a 17-year career in commercial art, and I was at this place doing the art, and we had a lunch break hanging out, and this lady, Eleanor's there, and she said, you should join my Reiki group. And so this is a long time ago when it was still very novel. So like, yeah, sure, I want to experience that. So, I went all the way through. If I'm going to start it, I go all the way through. So it had to be a Reiki master eventually. And then there was an integrated energy therapy learning with the master, Stephen Thayer, all the way through to that. It is totally different now than what it was. And I just, did these different trainings, and it all mishmashes, and you, when you need it, you have this whole wealth of information to pull on. I studied with an herbalist on her farm, making tinctures and flower remedies, but she happened to be someone that connected me with the idea of Eastern medicine and what emotion is behind what physically is wrong. And that played a huge part in my book as an emphasis to make me, go and heal. It's like a soul retrievals. So I said, when I was done with the book, I go to myself, this is a soul retrieval. So in the new edited thing, I make a mention of that idea that shamans understand that there can be a part of you that is stuck in time and space, still feeling the same at whatever age it happened to you. And you have to rescue that piece of you and bring it back. And they could use herbs, they could use drumming, they could use whatever is done. And me, it was a whole experience. I had to take the bull by the horns and really face it in person as much as possible and get this straightened out. So there were two people in the book that I resolved. One was instantaneous, and the other took a number of years through the magic of email. 33 years after, 33 in numerology is a big deal. Okay, so 33 years after I graduate, this boyfriend that dumped me and broke my little heart, he communicated with me. He sought me out and got my email address from the Alumni Association somehow. And almost to the day of my birthday, he's remembering, is the time he decided to send a hello. He wanted to reach out for forgiveness for treating me so badly.
Wow.
And that started this whole thing. And I say in the preface for my book, the most important thing in the book is you understand this preface, why I wanted to go through the lengths that I did. And it was knowing about that Eastern idea, right, from the herbalist. And then I met someone, we'll call his nickname is Yoshi, from Japan originally, living in the United States, ended up with colon cancer, decides he's going to go to Japan for treatment, goes there. They did the same resection they would have done here. But then someone walked into the room, he said, and handed him a journal and said, please write down why you attracted this to your body. And the whole story behind that is in his culture, he can't say no to his father, and his father's ideas of how he should live his life, Yoshi did not want to accept. So they finally had to have some kind of a talk about that. Just like, can we just agree to disagree? And that's it. it had subconsciously in Yogi's, whatever, his life, he had to realize the subconscious was telling him, well, if I'm dying, then Dad can't argue with me. So he brought on that illness, and he's been healthy and wonderful and fabulous, ever since. But he understood from then on, right? You're not going to forget that. And in a healing session I have with someone, some things like that can come out of nowhere and contribute to it. Someone came to me with pancreatic cancer, not cancer, pancreatitis. So inflammation of the pancreas. And I was working somewhere doing my thing that I like to do. And I never knew who was going to come in the door, what we're going to do half the time. It's like, okay, what are we doing here? What kind of thing am I supposed to juggle and come forth with to help you? So anyway, he happened to be working there. And so Karen, the owner, says, talk to Susan. So I'm talking to this guy. And he said, yeah, he's got pancreatitis. He went to the emergency room. Now, understand this man is, not drinking and doing drugs for a while. He's clean, and he goes to the emergency room and they want to give him an opiate. And he goes, no way. And he walks out, not taking it. I said, so what is your pain level? From 1 to 10, 11. How are we having this conversation? I said. But while we're talking, all of a sudden, nowhere, I see this vision of a Roman centurion's arm with, leather band on the wrist and thick muscular arm and a dagger stabbing him in the abdomen. Out of nowhere. I say, oh, well, I just saw this. Unfortunately, he rolls with it. Like, oh, okay. I said, well, they didn't like Christians much, and they did kill Christians. So he took that in, and I said, well, we'll have a biosyntony session. That's where the crystallines embedded in the ceramics come in. Another thing I was led to that very few people in the world are doing, but we'll just put it in I'm using crystals category to make it simple. Anyway, so he was going to see me like on Monday. So Sunday he goes to church, and that's where he's getting his, support to stay sober side. And he said, I got so uncomfortable. I had to leave the church service. But that they didn't like Christians. So that phrase came back to me. So we meet, and I'm doing my thing with the crystals, and he's finding it's the only person that really found it really painful. And I said, well, we can stop. Just take everything off you. And he goes, nope, I want it to do what it's going to do. Okay. So he walks out. He comes back a week later, and I said, how you doing? He goes, I'm fine. And I said, okay. He said, because I dealt with the emotional part that was contributing to it, that you said I needed to find and get some kind of resolution to, and he did. And so it went away. And then I saw him like a few months later, and he said, I started to get that pain, but I remembered what you said. And right away dealt with the emotional stuff, and it went away. So something the emergency room didn't know how to deal with was solved with him being told, you have to look into the emotional reason you have this. As far as I know, he's been fine ever since. But it's such a lesson, right? Such a lesson he'll never forget.
Wow.
And I've had some things like pop out of nowhere. It was so bizarre. Just one more of those spontaneous things. I never know when they're going to happen. There's someone who's very sick, and that same lady Karen, so this is my friend Bob, Bill, whatever, doesn't matter. And he's feeling so sick, like he's going to die. And he's going to all these doctors and things like that. And so I sit down with him, we're talking, and okay. And I find out one of the problems. And I said, okay, go to this holistic dentist. And he was going to somebody, I don't know, I recommended, or he went there anyway for specialty, looking into the blood work really closely. And all that was starting him on his healing journey. So at one point I said, I'm not going to charge you any money. Would you just come? We should have a chat. So we're talking, and all of a sudden, if you could possibly imagine, you're talking to someone, and then you see a Spanish conquistador pop out from behind him. Start telling you that the guy I'm talking to, Bill, hacked him to death in his spine with a battle axe. And he was so ticked off that he actually was hanging on this guy for how many lifetimes from the Spanish era, where the Spanish had invaded the British Isles, because I understood where we were going here. It was the British Isles. And so there was a fight. And so this Irish, or whatever they were called at the time, he defended, and he ended the life of this Spaniard who was like in 30s, and he was the captain, and he had, family and all this stuff. And like, no, you took me down. And so he showed himself at this point, because ghosts can do that to me. They know who can see them and who can help them cross. So this one showed up, and he was explaining that whole thing that I just said about his life, and he was angry. And so for all of Bill's life, he always was suffering somehow from allergies and things like that. He was never like 100% well. So this guy realized, the story's over. He's getting better. It's time for me to leave. So to say that he was cursed, I guess you could say he was cursed for who knows how many lifetimes that this guy, Bill or Bob, whatever, had been coming through and not being well, because that guy didn't want him to be well. Yeah. And then there's the poltergeists. They can follow you from house to house. Yes, I had a medical doctor come in with the daughter, not having a good time at all. In her first year of college, she should have been having the time of her life, and she was depressed. She came in with her head hanging down. I mean, depressed, can't get any work done. Everything's falling apart. Okay. But she happened to mention, well, we just moved out of this haunted house and we're in a rental now. Like, okay. So when I get into her field doing the biofield tuning, the poltergeist shows up, and I got his name, and the daughter says, oh yeah, that's what so-and-so said. That's his name. So I had to have a chat, and I was going to do it telepathically only. And I said, no, I want you two to know what I'm saying. So I said it out loud that, he's got to let go of her and let her live her life and stop literally sucking the energy of life out of her. And so he got off of her, and I never saw such a dramatic a lifting off of energy from someone when I was doing work on this girl. All this stuff was coming off of her. And she literally was transformed and just about danced out the door. What a lovely story.
I do love that one. Thank you for sharing that. That's a cute one, too.
Very happy ending. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is that. So I don't always look for stuff, but that case, I knew to look for stuff. Like John Holland, after an interview, was asked, so do you see this stuff all the time? He goes, heck no, I want a normal life. I turn it on when I want to see it. And that's me. I turn it on when I want to see it. But people ask me, well, oh, you're a medium. Who's around me? It's like, it's none of my business. I don't want to be spending all my energy doing that. It's none of my business. It's invasive. No.
100%.
You come to me for a reading, then it's my business 100%. That's why you're here.
Have you ever, Susan, seen a poltergeist or an egregore that person had created themselves and had not been aware of it? We often hear about teenagers who are, in angst, and all of a sudden books start falling or things start happening, or women who are menopausal, whatever, men in crisis or what have you. And so they're creating these energetic egregores that can wreak havoc. I'm wondering if you've ever seen anything like that, or been able to, I guess, pinpoint that a lot of times we create our own, or we manifest our own anxiety.
I can't say per se exactly, no. Not in my experience. There was another reading I did that I was prompted after the other one to actually look in the field for somebody. And there was a nasty guy there. There really was. But you got to watch when you say, you want them to get off the person that you're with as a client. You don't want them to follow you home. So there's different ways of dealing with that. And I didn't do so well with those first two things. But then I was remembering there's a training I took with Zion, I think Tina Zion, and she goes into the right way to get the ghosts to move on. And the right way is to show them compassion.
Like we would a human in this physical world.
Exactly. They were suffering individuals. That's why they're still hanging around. And they were misunderstood and mistreated, probably. And so that's why they ended up as they were appearing and causing problems. So from now on, I'll remember, the training is like, oh, yes. Because one of them was showing up the first one I mentioned was showing up in my house, the poltergeist guy. I said, oh, no. Just no.
Mhm.
You're not, no. That was it. No permission. Move on. And then the second nasty guy looked like something out of a Charles Dickens with the long dark hair and a long coat and everything is black. And he was giving me a nasty look as soon as I saw him. Like, ooh. He actually made me sick.
How so?
It's like a feeling, just literally feeling like you have to go to the bathroom, but there's really not much more than that going on. I didn't have a fever. I didn't have this. I didn't have that. It was just that I'm not leaving the house today. You're going to be inconvenienced.
Yep.
And for a little while. It didn't last a long time. But it's like, okay, because there was no other symptoms of being sick, I knew what it was. He wanted to have the last word.
Mhm.
That's what it was.
Would you mind sharing with us and our listeners how you dealt with that situation? I think that more than we realize that happens, whether people realize that they have skills or talents or not. I think so many of us, going back to the egregore question, have those thoughts and don't realize how on point they may be. And sometimes it's just a matter of listening to, like you said, it doesn't need to manifest into a fever or, some bronchitis or something severe in order for you to recognize this is in my field and I need to do something about it.
Yeah, there's something off. And that's a lot the term people go. So there's something
Yeah.
off. I don't feel 100% today, people will say, and things like that. Yeah, so you could look into it and find there's any number of, influences coming in and making it a statement somehow by you feeling something physically, because maybe they're not getting through mentally to you. So they're trying the physical way. Yeah, so I should have been more polite with the nasty guy, I guess. And just, I just don't want you to be hanging in he's a healer. I don't want him, having this darkness hanging in the field. He's a healer. You want to clear that stuff out. Now, he had no idea, and I didn't even mention it to him. What's the point? The guy moved on. But just know, you are interacting with a being.
Yes. And that energetically, what you put out there is often what you get back. It's employment 101, right? When you terminate someone, and I'm not talking about terribly egregious behavior, but when you terminate someone from employment, the last thing you do is injure their dignity. It's a way of teaching them that they're either not appropriate or a good fit for your organization or whatever, but to tear someone apart means you're about to get a lawsuit. So, it's employment 101. The way that you would treat any being energetically could, I should say, result in it coming back to you in a way that you may not appreciate, unless you love spending time in the bathroom.
Well, I wasn't in there much, but it was enough to say that I know what this is. And so you get your lessons.
Yeah, sure.
And then you remember them.
Yes.
So it came out very, very lightly the first time, right? It's just a little, oh, you're in my field. No. And then the other one was like, because he was a bad dude, I had to treat him differently. He wanted some respect.
Yeah. I call those moments my 2x4 moments. Because sometimes
hit you over the head. You can. Can't miss this one. Can't miss this one.
And then it's much easier to remember the next time.
So I don't always look for this. I was just prompted because it was a friend of mine. Let me just see. And he's a healer. Let's not have stuff hanging on there that could interfere with his work. I never told him. And it's okay.
A question that is just coming to me about this topic is, if somebody is listening to this and it resonates deeply for one reason or another,
Good.
What would you suggest that individual do, not only on I don't want to use the word selfish, but on a personal level, but maybe would you encourage them to reach out? What would you encourage them to do if they feel like, it's possible I have something lingering? Let's just leave it as simple as that. What would you suggest to them, other than, of course, going to your website and booking an appointment?
Well, as an example, when you know someone who's also gifted, call them. So my friend Amy says, I know I can call you and ask you anything. no matter how wacko, and it's okay. So yeah, one time she called me and she goes, "There's this guy at the door." I said, "Old guy at the door, but I know he's not dead. I know she lives in a senior complex. Okay. I know he's not dead. He's at my door. I just want to know why is he there? Who is he? Or do I have to be concerned about this at all?" And so I start describing him as now both of us are describing someone that isn't physical at her door in New Hampshire. She lives in New Hampshire. So I described what he was wearing and all that stuff. And I said, "Yeah, I agree." This brings on, of course, another thing. So he just came to you, Amy, because he notices the light coming from you in your space. And he was curious. That's all. He might actually still be asleep in another apartment in the complex. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, this opens up so many stories. Wow. Okay. But yeah, someone can just, if they're talented and you can call them up and, there's no money here. It's just like, who's there? Could you just help me out? And yeah, blah, blah, blah. And this is what, oh, okay. That's all I wanted to know. Done. So it can be that simple. But we're still on the idea of spirits. So this is appropriate to go on to this one. Okay. So that's the second place I visited Amy, where she presently lived now. She lived previously in another town in New Hampshire. And I visited her in her apartment. And she's saying, we're in the living room. And she goes, my cat is acting really weird, Susan. Is there somebody here? But I'm not seeing. So I turn on my sight and I go, oh yeah, there's this guy Arthur here. And I'm getting this whole thing with Arthur. Okay. So Arthur's here. And, turns out he was just hanging on. And she had created what she called, and it's not necessary really, but she created a pillar of light. She established this pillar of light in the greens area. We'll say this little patch of green they had in the complex. She just had it there as a connection with the divine, bringing it down. And just so happened, never accidents, right? So anyway, I'm saying this whole story about Arthur, and he lost his wife, and he's still kind of hanging out here to see if he can still find his wife and stuff like that. And I'm telling him like, oh, well, your wife is waiting for you, but not in this reality. You need to go. And Amy goes, yeah, tell him to go to the light. That's a shaft of light. So I just tell him, if you go there, you will reunite with your wife and you'll find out where she is. So I recommend you do that. And he just kind of poof, he wasn't there, seemed. And then we walk, again, reminding you we're in a complex with elderly and those with fixed incomes and all sorts of whatever. So many people, okay? So we move into the kitchen, we consider continue our little talk. And all of a sudden, my body starts shaking. It's shaking and shaking. I said, oh my God. Everybody is coming at me now. Everybody in the whole damn complex. And I'm saying, okay, no. I will not. I refuse. All of you, please, just go to the light. Follow Arthur. Go to the light now. And it calmed down. I was like, oh, wow.
Oh my gosh, what a nightmare. You were like the beacon of just...
I became this beacon, yes. As I said, they can tell who can help them get out of here. Oh, here's another crazy thing. My husband is a big Civil War buff, okay? We've been to Gettysburg probably 4 times. This time we went with my nephew and his wife, who lived in Pennsylvania at the time. So we met up and we're there, and Walter goes, my husband, are going to go to the graveyard. So we're at the graveyard and everybody's walking around. I separate from people. I'm just walking around in there. And all of a sudden, most horrible feeling. There's a breeze. It's not really a breeze. This is a spirit coming in because there was no breeze. Okay. And it comes through the side of me and moves through me like I'm jello and out the other side. Ugh. And like, what is that? No. And then he comes back the other way. Feeling, oh, and I go, no, stop it right now. You do not have my permission. Stop it now. You go, and any of the others that are in here, go to the light. And I called it in their terms, go to the nearest funeral parlor when that spirit is going through and out, you go with them. That is your doorway. Go with them. And they stopped. What an awful feeling. I shall never forget.
There was
But
so
I
much
can go
activity in Gettysburg. So much activity.
so much. Oh, yeah. So we one other time we slept in the town.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, nothing creepy I could say where I was aware of, but I just couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep. I didn't hardly sleep all night. And then a friend of mine goes, of course, because there's only spirits and ghosts floating around. And they were disturbing your sleep. I said, yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely. And we were also there another time, right? A few times. So we're now on property that who knows what was happening anywhere in town. And, so there's these 3 hotels that decided on a piece of land to build together. We're at the Days Inn. We spend the night. We're leaving. We get out the door. We shut the door behind us. We're dragging our little rolled suitcases behind us. And we both turn around because we heard someone behind us. Nobody there. Nobody. So it doesn't matter where you are, whether you're in the graveyard or anywhere else in town, they're all over.
They really are. I grew up there.
Oh,
I grew up in Littlestown, which is right beside Gettysburg. And Gettysburg was our biggest rival in high school. But we spent a lot of time there. Yeah, there's a lot of stories. So I commend you for going back there as often.
oh yeah, it's been
Being
4
sensitive
times. I
as
said,
you
I
are.
think next time just go by yourself.
Yeah.
But we were we think we were Philadelphia or something, and we're walking around and
Valley
there's a
Forge
little,
and- yeah.
they have a lot of stuff there too. And we were just by a small graveyard in the Betsy Ross area, whatever.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden it was a female spirit started materializing in my mind and it started like, no. I'm sorry. No, you're not welcome. Because they want to give you their whole story and attach to you and follow you home. No.
And
I will
work-
say that's an example that at times you have to just not say no. Just say no.
You have to channel your inner Nancy Reagan.
Was that her thing, to just say no?
Yeah, just say no. Well,
Okay.
what's really funny about that, Susan, is I worked beside the Liberty Bell. Wow, you're hitting on my home spots. That's cool.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Beside the Federal Reserve building where all the homeless people slept. Isn't that ironic?
Oh,
And that's on Independence Square, which diagonally across from Independence Square was where the Liberty Bell was, the Betsy Ross house. I know exactly where you were, all on the cobblestoned areas. Anyway,
mhm.
I'm sure you have questions, Chloe. Sorry.
I'm just rambling on, one thing leading to the next. So
Absolutely.
please barge in now and redirect where you want me to go.
No, I love it. I love it. I think you're so well versed. I'm really enjoying listening to you. And I think I'm very curious from your perspective. If let's say I'm very new to this journey and maybe I am that person, maybe, whoever whatever. So maybe I'm recognizing different energies or different things. And maybe I'm so early in my journey that I am nervous to start those conversations, to try to find that witchy friend or that mysterious friend or that spiritual friend or just the person who's not going to try to commit you if you tell them, hey, I think that dog is talking to me. What would be a good path or a first couple of steps that you would encourage the very beginner who is listening to your story and just thinking, oh my gosh, how could I ever get there? And what do I do with these things? Does that make sense?
So how to connect to get like-minded people and get training?
Yes. What would you suggest for them to get that ball started? Or even before they go to the trainings, what piece of advice would you tell them to discover community? There we go.
Find a spiritualist church. And a lot of them do stuff online, so you don't have to be there in person. So, yeah, I just had a quick class with John Shield through the Pompton Lakes Spiritualist Church. The Journey Within, I will give them a plug. The Journey Within in Pompton Lakes. Janet Nohavik started that and ran that for many years. And Joe Shield has now taken it up to continue what she started, which was huge. And a lot of people attend. guests, and a lot of trainings happen. And as I mentioned, people coming in from England can be guest trainers and stuff like that. And there's also the Institute of Spiritual Development in Sparta, New Jersey. I don't think they do anything online. So if you happen to be in that part of New Jersey, fine. And not too far from Pennsylvania there. And New York State, it's in that kind of in the corner. So otherwise, Pompton Lakes, the journey within. And you can just start at the very, very beginner level, and they have all different kinds of classes, tarot and stuff like that. And what I do, though, with all these different trainings, if maybe you're getting a hint, is I blend them together. I use what I need. If it doesn't belong during training in a biofield tuning to pick up someone's past life, I'm going with it. That's what I see, you know? And also, when the biofield tuning, they kind of, everybody knows this chakra thing, chakra. Okay, chakras mean a whole lot of different things. Because I'm also a medical technician, I'm dealing with people discussing, how their body is, all right? So it's all very body-centered. And I have that Eastern medicine approach of combining the emotions to the body. So what organ, like if you're carrying around a lot of anger, the energy in the liver could be low. That doesn't mean the liver's failing. It's an indication to me to tell you that there's something that you're hanging on to for a long time, but anger. And you need to address that or whatever else is your homework, and bringing it up what your body is telling me to tell you. And so I do it that way, which isn't the original training, but Eileen McCusick doesn't care that you stick to any rigid rules. She's introducing the idea of sound, and this is how you work with it, but also incorporate that into the gifts that you have. And so I'm doing it differently than maybe many of them probably are not doing what I do in a session, because I just happen to being trained to do that at a level of accomplishment in certain areas. So that, and that was kind of fun thing. The last training I had, we were doing something about getting the third eye kind of opened up, and have an idea where she might have said where somebody called Melchizedek, this book's that him, and he has a training. I think you find it online, as a matter of fact, for the beginners. Go online, you want to open up your third eye, find out Mondrello, I think something like that, Melchizedek, third eye opening, something like you might find it. Because I saw it was good, very instructional. So we do this during class. And, you go around a class and like, oh, what did you experience? Blah, blah, blah. It came to me and what did you experience? And I'm like, I was in Egypt. I was an initiate. I had been taken to the temple in a whole story, okay? All in a temple, in a wooden canoe. And I was brought here for someone to do the ceremony on me, much like was being done at the time. So that at not one time when the person behind me had no idea what was going on while she's doing it, all of a sudden I just go, I have this, I'm trying to show you like right angles with my arms and my hands up. And then it was done. I just knew to do this. And then I would be taken back to the temple. So obviously I had a life in Egypt and I was training to be in the temple. I'm aware of some of the lives that I've had before. That one was very vivid, just a little vignette, but then it said a lot.
Absolutely.
Said a lot. Yeah. So I knew these things in other lives. Right. I guess is what we're really getting onto.
That's the
one
thread,
thing leads
right?
to the other.
Yeah.
You're remembering things you did before. So I'm saying don't be scared of these things. If you're curious, follow that. It may be something you did before in other lives. Maybe that's why it comes more naturally to you than somebody else. At this time, I would follow promptings. It's a very confusing world we're living in. Changes will continue to be rapid. We have to do our best to roll with it and keep our sanity. And try and tap into any guidance that you can get personally. All right? Not picking up the phone and spending $200 every time you have a question. Try to tap in. And one thing is to say, I'd like guidance, ask for guidance. There's nothing wrong with praying and saying, could you send guidance, God? And if that makes you feel better to do it that way, help guide me through these changes, or send me people that can help guide me through these changes.
Yeah. I think that's kind of, a lot of where I was going with that. I think the more and more I look around and really connect with the spiritual community, at least for me, what resonates is all of the different modalities that people have learned and tried and trained in, but the blending of such, like the unique approach, I think.
Mhm.
And at least for me, sometimes that can be not only the thing I adore and lures me in almost in an energetic level, not like a financial transaction level, but also I think sometimes that could be the most intimidating, right? Because it's like, well, where do I start? How can I, how you just get so snowbally down that hill of where to begin so that in the long run, whatever my path may be, or whoever is having this thought process, trying to navigate which things to do, because kind of what you mentioned is, everybody's got a for sale sign on their corner of how they can teach you, and recognizing and realizing which steps not only resonate on a personal individual level, but that they're each building blocks if you want them to be, I think is kind of what I was thinking as well, if that makes sense.
Well, I'm getting prompted, okay? What can we say with all that you said? Go with what you're comfortable with. Don't reach so far that you're afraid you're going to be afraid. Yeah. And because that will just hold back your progress. Just try, meditating. Maybe you would like to just privately learn, how to do tarot. That's one of the things I started with. My first teacher taught tarot. She taught being able to, if you could, visualize someone else, like you would be paired up and pick up something about them. You don't know, and there's no discussion here. Just pick up something about them, and you're in their energy field. We're doing that. And then she did the introduction to the past life regressions, which for me is very vivid. It's very vivid. So it's like a movie watching me in another body in another time. Yeah, fascinated I was by that. So that's helped me with the mediumship. It's just me particularly. And then, there's other people that, as far as clairaudience, I only heard one once. It was something actually, I was amazed at the volume. It was loud. Okay, I won't do that. It's like, that's what it was. Somebody said, don't do that. We said, like, okay. I'm not, reversed with everything. So like, I'm mostly the visual part. Mm-hmm. And there's different, the different senses that you can use to pick up information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's a little different. Just try and think of what you're comfortable with. Start there. Start very basic. There's classes that, someone like me would put out there just to let's have a past life regression. Keep it light. We're not trying to do any trauma recovery here. Let's just explore. If you ever wondered if you'd been in Egypt or Paris or, were you a Native American or whatever? And with those thoughts in mind, let's just go on this little journey. And I just quietly talk them along, and they come back and we have a nice share at the end, which is half the fun, where everybody went, what they experienced. Yeah. And I'm happy if I do a past life regression with someone and they can't see anything. I can tell them. I'd rather not. It's so much more important that they experience it themselves, because then it's real. Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's one way, exploring past lives and seeing. So then your mind is going somewhere, right? And you're getting visuals, or someone's picking up senses because they're not visual. Like, oh, I'm feeling hot, I'm feeling cold, I'm feeling this in my body or that. Yeah, that's another way. That's a good beginner thing to start with. And if they want to do tarot cards, it's a training. Just know it's a tool. You don't need the tool, but it helps you focus. Yeah. And therefore it's helpful. And maybe you can get your answers faster that way.
As such a visual, clairvoyant individual, what made you choose biotuning as a healing modality?
Everybody's been playing around with bowls, and this was different. And I liked how she was trying to be as scientific, and she still is trying to be as scientific as possible to explain what she's doing. She's on every podcast you can imagine for energy healing, so you probably have seen her mentioned at least. She's a very down-to-earth person. I very like her. And she keeps coming up with creative things to do with it. And you take what you need. I've gone to the third level and I'm doing plenty with it. So I don't feel like adding any more, because what adds is just what comes along. that needs to be added. Yeah. Everybody's session is completely different than the other person's. And I find, why would you, as people often say, explain why someone would get a past life regression. I find that you can get a lot of knowledge about how we interrelate with one another relationship wise.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. By seeing it, if you hopefully can, in another life where you're now you're the male and and you're female now, but you were male then, and then you had interaction with this person and it was a disagreement happened, whatever. Maybe somebody was bilking the other out of money and running off with it. And so you have this feeling that when you meet them, you can't trust them. This person you met for the first time. Like, why is it that,
Yeah.
I just don't trust them. That kind of thing. There was a psychiatrist or psychologist that went to a friend of mine who taught me to do, and everybody around here to do past life regressions. And because that professional showed up because a client walked in the door that she was deathly afraid of, and she wanted to know why.
Cool.
So she found out that new client had stabbed her to death in another lifetime. So she said, oh, okay, I just wanted to know it so I could handle it better, to know where that's coming from. He's still going to be my client, but I just needed that understanding.
Right.
Yeah.
I needed to get past that sheer panic of, something that I don't understand. Why am I panicked when I see this individual?
Yeah. I didn't want to be in the room with him by myself, like the whole thing. Oh, and I will say, maybe it's happened to others, that these sudden past life recall can happen out of nowhere, it seems. Something triggers them. And you can have a very physical reaction to it. Very. Yeah, this is too much of a long story about this one, but very much so. Yeah, I shall never forget this one. And I figured out later kind of what it was about and why it was such a violent reaction on my end. It explained why these people were interacting with me on a certain level that I wasn't inviting at all. And so it came back to, that's how they were treating me in another life, and ended my life extremely violently. So when those three people were in the same room at the same time, the only thing that touched it off was 3 words in my head. They're all here. That started it. And then I ended up, after that, recuperating from that, but having to learn how to not have anxiety attacks, because then all of a sudden I was having anxiety attacks. One of those 3 people I could not be around. He must have been the ringleader. I could not be around him at all. And finally told him to his face, I'm sorry, you make me sick. You do. Literally. He just took it in. Okay. So I didn't see him anymore.
I had this whole story on my podcast. When Susan's episode airs, wait till you hear this, Chloe.
Oh, you got the whole thing. Okay, then let them look at it then. And the details. It was uncanny, but then it finally came all together as to why. So, because I'm coming back to why you want a past life regression is the understanding why you're interacting a certain way. What is off about these people and me? What is it? I'm not asking for this.
That's a bad story. I don't know how you wouldn't have felt differently once you had that recall. It's impossible.
But
to feel your life threatened. Yeah.
I'm knowing it was very violent, and I probably said something about that. But you learn from experiences, right? So you keep that in mind when you're working with other people. Yeah.
Yeah, that can certainly be a challenge. I was going to ask how you dealt with it, but you told us.
Yeah, I mean, the other episode, we can have time for that one. And I probably discussed a few things I didn't certainly repeat here. Some things weren't, and we got onto new material. I forgot that we had recorded that other one. Yeah. So, but ask any other questions you have, because that will help make me go in a certain direction.
Yes. So quick plug in, that episode they're all talking about is the Past Lives Cafe. And we will also have that link in our show notes for your episode there when it comes out. One of the questions I had that kind of goes with the biofield tuning, I think, is honestly just my negligence because I haven't even had a chance to Google it, but I don't even know if I'll be able to say it correct. But you've mentioned it a few times and it's on your website. It's biosynti.
There's biosyntony and then there's biofield tuning.
Yeah, that first one. Could you explain to me? I mean, I see here you say working with Mother Earth's energies to rebalance the body. Would you mind telling me about that a little bit? That's
Sure.
the one that really stood out to me on your website.
It's one of those things that was synchronicity. That same person that taught me how to do past life regressions, I stopped by her house one afternoon and I saw a flyer on her dining room table about this thing going on in New York City. And it's like, this sounds really interesting. She goes, hey, why don't you get in the car with us tomorrow? We're going. So the three of us will go and check this stuff out. And at the end of the weekend, where there's alternative doctors, chiropractors, all these people getting this training, they turned to me and said, we have no interest in this whatsoever, but we were meant to get you here.
Yeah.
So the training was Dr. Talmar had come up from his holistic center in Gainesville, Florida. And unfortunately, he passed away maybe 5 years ago. What a sweet man. But he has a French wife, and therefore, of course, he had reason to be in France probably pretty regularly. And it met up with this guy, Pierre Nicolas, and he had created, I call him a biophysicist. I can't think of any other title, and no one explained his real training, but a lot of training in esoteric. And he created this microcrystallized material, and you're not to know which crystals he's using for different effects. Okay. All he would tell us is these are ceramics with microcrystalline materials in them, and it's the temperature that they are fired on in the kiln. He makes them all by hand. The temperature, besides what's in them, makes the difference and their effect on the body. Now, the effect on the body is to bring in earth energy. So you have to clear the room of electromagnetic energy. I know how to do that. And you also would like take any shoes off because they have rubber soles. That's keeping us ungrounded. A lot of people are realizing that now, to take off your shoes once in a while and walk around. Anyway, so the sessions are either laying down or even just sitting. And if you're laying down, that guy with the pancreatitis, he was laying down and have all these discs on him. And the energy comes through the head if you're laying down, through the crown. If you're sitting down, it'll come up through your feet. Now, this earth energy will enter the body, and your body innately knows what to do with it. You're a creature here on earth, and you're tuned in to the electromagnetics. So this is allowing your body to move it to where it's needed and do what it needs to do. And it can go to multiple locations within one session. 20 minutes is the shortest to allow the energy to get into your body and remain there to circulate. 40 minutes is optimal. And different discs have different effects. I can put different ones on you at the same time. There's nothing otherwise invasive. The practitioner is not involved. Your body is the only one. It's totally unlike an acupuncturist, where they will move the energy around in your body. And I did some training with acupressure and stuff like that. So I understand you got to go to A to B to C to finally get the energy moved where you want. This way, it's like you're on autopilot. I set you up and your body knows what to do. And it does a lot of good for people. Amazing tune-up. So if it's a physical thing people are coming in with, I'll let the body decide what to do with it. And on the other hand, if it's not a physical thing, then I'll probably do biofield tuning, or I can do something. Two friends of mine got together. So we were a trio and we were adding together the different modalities that we know and came up with something called quantum energy shift. It's not on my website right now, but I can literally go down the spine with my, energy and intuitiveness and stop at a certain vertebrae and say, oh, this is from a past life. We got to clear this. And this is going on here. And this is going down there. Because if you look at a chiropractor's chart, they show you that every vertebrae has a connection to different organs and systems in the body. It is a fact that the majority of women that get breast cancer have something to do with their molars that aren't okay. So you pay attention to your teeth because your teeth are also connected with other parts of your body.
Wow. I'm going to have to Google. I live in the Pacific Northwest on the other side of the United States from you two. So I'm going to do some more local research on that one. That is so cool. I mean, honestly, your whole list of trainings, which, as you said, is not even all of the things that you've done or trained in, but
I
it's a
pick up
great
things
list.
along the way, and you use with what you need and, at the time. And do I say that my trainings are, you don't have to necessarily have an extensive number of trainings. What you need is to be good at them.
I agree. I agree completely.
Then you get the depth. So don't feel bad. Oh, I only trained in Reiki. Did you at least go to the Reiki master? That would be wonderful. But if you're really good at level 2 and you're sending it, fantastic. Decide if you want to go further. I'd like adding up my credentials, I guess, but I always wanted to know what was next. And, did I miss anything if I stopped? So I usually went all the way through to the, IET training, level and that stuff like that. But wonderful stuff to investigate. See what you're drawn to, what you'll be comfortable starting with, and that person that's training you might know someone else that does something, or they do something else that they can also train you with, and just putter around. I'm just going to emphasize again, it's very important that you do try to see what you can start picking up on your own intuitively. You can use pendulums, but let me tell you, if it's you personally involved, you're not going to get a good reading with your pendulum. I can make my pendulum say yes when it should be no, and no when it should be yes, and all that kind of, because I'm emotionally involved.
Yeah.
And you could probably say the same as giving yourself a tarot reading. It's still going to kind of lean the way you want it to be, right? Yeah. So reach out to people who are talented and can just try and discern what's going on. And any decisions, of course, are up to you. They're just telling you how things look at the moment. Remember, when you're getting a reading, it's at the moment. And if there's other people involved in your life, and there are, if they change what they're doing all of a sudden, that's going to change things.
Absolutely.
It's going to change the whole picture. So keep yourself involved in what your decisions are.
Yeah, I think sometimes for me, I don't even know why. Like, let's use past life regression as an example. Usually I don't have an agenda. It just intuitionally, it just feels like that's what I need to be doing, whatever it is. So sometimes I more often than not, at least, am kind of like the blind train, just following the caboose wherever it's going.
Have you had past life regressions?
Yes, I have. I just did a phenomenal quantum regression integrative therapy with Chione over here, actually, which was phenomenal.
Right.
And life-changing on so many levels. Like, even from the day-to-day monotony things that used to work me up to major life situations, there's this sense of calm, patience, loving, and support that I feel having done that with her now.
Great.
That carries me through instead of that emotional roller coaster. So yeah, actually, I'm very grateful that I followed those intuitional things, even though I honestly, on the surface level, have no idea why I'm doing it. And then once I'm there, I'm like, oh, I know why I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things, though, go ahead.
No, I was also going to say real quickly and then hand it back to you. Chloe has also had an official past life regression with, I don't know if the person was QHHT trained, but it's been several years ago. And they were, I think it was a phone regression, right? And she was able to see herself in Civil War era time frame, as well as I got the feeling it was maybe earlier Victorian or maybe earlier, like Les Miserables, the time period in France. So she did have 2 lives that she was able to see through another modality as well.
Other than the QHHT, another way.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool. I might be coming to you for a regression, Susan. I need somebody who's good at it. Oh, no, I have to come to you in person. Ooh.
Yes. Where are you now?
Delaware. Not that far.
Yeah, it's a bit of a ride, but yeah, it's doable.
If you ever make it to the West Coast, though, please let me know. I travel. I'm willing to travel.
In my book, there was someone who was training with Dolores Canyon for that. And it was part of what I was exploring about the relationship. So I said, I got to have a regression.
Mhm.
And I almost didn't need her. She was just there listening to me babble. I went right out, boom, went to this life, that life, the other life. And she's just like listening, like, oh, it's all done. Yeah, I did it. Okay. Roger Wolger, who passed away, British, he had another way, and I did a little bit of his training.
Oh, I know who you mean. Yes.
Because sometimes what is the way to get the person where they need to go is to have them focus on the emotion.
Yep.
And there was a great workshop demonstrating that. So it was more like, I'm not involved, the audience is involved, but he's finding different people to work with there and have great examples of that. So the emotion sometimes. So that came up once when I was at my friend Karen's place and I was working with someone the usual way. And then all of a sudden she goes, well, and she took it on, go through with the emotion, like, oh, yeah, because we had this roadblock and she's trying, she's not getting anywhere. She goes, let me just go with the emotion. Boom. She was exactly where she needs to be and getting the answers she needed.
Yep.
So yeah, it's valuable to try that if you're stuck trying to get somewhere. Like what does, and you can deal with yourself. It's like, this is the issue I'm having and what does it bring up in my body?
Yep.
Is there a clue there in my body? Yep. Where's the anxiety?
Agreed.
Yeah. But back to the whole thing of me having the recall and the anxiety attacks and all that is that once I learned how to teach myself to get out of an anxiety attack, to stop it, then reverse it and everything, that took a while. But now I know because I had someone come in. There was someone who was doing a facial, a friend of mine. She calls me up, Susan, I got one for you. And the lady was freaking out during the facial and she didn't know why, but I was aware that very strange room to some people would be kind of claustrophobic, we'll just say. I know the room, okay? And then so we went into the regression and she went, boom, right to this very stressful city. One of those things like the enemy caught up with you, everyone else left, and in 5 minutes you're dead, whether you cooperate or not. Yep. And that's really stressful. And so when we were done, I said, well, that was the trigger because everybody pressed up tight against you, like breathing down on your face here, ready to kill you. Yeah, that's something a bit stressful, right? You can't get around that. So that somehow that was behind her anxiety attacks. And then so she left telling my friend she got more than she expected. Yes, she found immediately. I mean, we went to just one lifetime. That's all we needed to know. Boom. And then she got a little training on how to work with it herself because I experienced it myself. And it's tough. It's tough. Mind over mind kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So those are little kind of gifts that you get when it's like really uncomfortable at the time, but you remember.
Yep. Yes.
You remember?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You did bring up your book, and that's something we really, really were excited to talk about.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Actually, I'm just going to give it away to you. I don't even need to say anything else. Would you like to talk about your book, The Healing a Desperate Heart?
Yeah, we keep talking back about past life regressions and stuff like that. And so the preface was talking about the idea of Eastern medicine and how it affects you physically, what your emotions are strongly, when they're strongly there. What does that do to your body? So the friend of mine that needed surgery, as I said, he went to Japan and they did the surgery. They could have done here, but they wanted to know from him, write down why you attracted this to you. So with that in mind, that you can have something bothering you for so long that is not finished business. And if you don't, how is it affecting you on a physical level, actually? Are you going to invite disease in, serious stuff, because you're neglecting this? It's out there. It's trying to get your attention, right? Okay, so let's do something about it. So as a relationship, and it was a big deal for me at the time, in the preface, I mentioned, hey, at the age you are now, looking back, you can understand how people act and, all that and have dealt with it differently. But you can only deal with something with the understanding you have. at that age of your personal development. And that's your limit. And you're stuck there. Part of you, the soul retrieval idea, part of you is stuck out there in time. And it's this encapsulated thing. And it was, yes, it was the first boyfriend breakup, same old deal. However, how I handled it and how it came about through an email with an apology from him 33 years after we broke up, almost to the day I was born, was significant. So that got me to say, I want a resolution to this. And through the magic of email, which didn't exist before that, we had lots of conversations back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But I also had to deal with my dad, because little did I know we're talking about someone who was like 17, 16, 17, mostly 16 while it was happening. There's a dad thing. When dad doesn't give the daughter attention, affection, just normal stuff, praise, hugs, all that, she's going to look for it elsewhere if she needs it. And so that was the first boyfriend. Okay. And I had no idea 16. This is a classic, which is why I wrote the book, because there's so many people, the same thing. How did you handle that first breakup? And depending on your relationship with your dad, as a female, say, I had to do it from that. I'm speaking from the female point of view. Not having that, when you got it from like the Italian side of the family, and I have German side. So he's coming from the stoic, keep your emotions to yourself, don't express them. This is the ideal. You know, that's totally different than the Italian exuberant. Hey, Susan's here and we're like excited. Yay! You know, it's like, here's another party. And like, yeah, like you're a celebrity when you walk in the door, and everybody is when they walk in the door. Everybody's excited to be together, a family thing, hugging, and all. It takes like at least half an hour before you could ever leave a family gathering just to say goodbye. And what was wrong with him? What was wrong with me? Why couldn't he be affectionate like that? What's missing? And so I went and found out with the boyfriend, who of course remained all this time, still thinking of me on a certain level. I ignored that. I was looking at what I was needing to get. I wanted an understanding of the other person, where they came from. So the dad and the boyfriend were approached the same way in my mind. What was it about them and their past, the way they were raised, the experiences they had in life that make them who they are, and how there's a disconnect? What's that disconnect? To my dad, it was straightforward, and he's a straightforward kind of guy. He gave me the exact answer with hardly any hesitation. So that was just one quick chapter. But the resolution to that was wonderful, because from then on, whenever I would go over to the house or meet him, we would hug. We never did that before.
I love that part.
So he would hug forever from then. He understood. I had explained it clearly. He explained back that, yes, I was right. He really didn't want any children. And by the time I had been born, he said, I'd had it. And he said it just like that. The relatives I know, yeah, that's Charlie. Charlie would say just like that, right? In your face. This is it. Yeah, not one to mince words and all. So, but he understood. He did some thinking before he said what he said. But it's from their ideal. And later on in the book, it was, explained. My aunt, his sister, said to me, and it's good for people to understand if you never read my book here. So I'm pointing these things out. She said it in our family, in the German side, it's not what you said. It's what you do for people that shows that you care. So what did my dad do for me? He built me a drafting table for my artwork. He built me, without me asking or saying anything, and he put together a hope chest with cedar lining for me when I was going to get married. And, all these things like that. But I could not fault him for being the man he understood he was raised to be.
Right.
Take care of the family, work your butt off to make sure everything is provided for them that they shouldn't want, for shelter, for food, for clothing. Did we go on vacations? That's why Grandma's house was so great. Everybody else didn't have any money. We all go there and have a fabulous time. There was nothing to fault. So there was like a huge forgiveness on my part. I had to understand him. Okay.
Yeah.
And now I was trying through a lot of the book was having these conversations to understand that first boyfriend. Very different background than anybody I ever met that shaped his life. So That's what that was. It was a conversation in the back and the forth and finally getting answers to the questions that so many people carry around. Well, what this and what about that? And you never get a chance to ask. I had my chance. I went wholly into it. And so the book was a teaching through watching me transform as we go through the book from the beginning to the end, mostly about that first boyfriend. So it's not about, there was an Amazon review. Oh, don't bother reading it. It's about she can't get over the first boyfriend.
Oh,
Like,
totally missed
very
the whole
shallow.
message. Mhm.
You're missing the whole point of me laboring over this thing. And I will also point out to someone, I actually wrote the book. People talk about it. I actually wrote the book, right?
Right.
Right.
Put yourself out there.
Yeah.
But I would tell people, write that book, whether you publish it or not. And nowadays you can self-publish. Write it, because I found in the editing a lot of healing, because you have to go over and over and over again and again, that same scenario, to get it right on paper, to convey it right on paper, until finally it's like, I'm done with that. I am so done with that. It doesn't bother me anymore. I've worked it out energetically. And so just the writing of it itself was healing. You will not find it on Barnes and Noble. I was banned from Barnes and Noble.
No. What, did you act up in Barnes and Noble?
They had, it's so funny. I mean, this was my first, I was told a long time ago when I did go to a cemetery, not cemetery, seminary.
That's
Seminary.
awesome.
Okay. The first year
Freudian slip
seminary dean. Can't get away from that. It's too similar.
That's so funny.
Anyway, the first year dean at the seminary said that there was a second book I was going to write, and it's a lot more important than the first one. Not that the first one was a waste of time. It still has a very important message, but the second it's going to be even more so, and that's going to be the kind of stuff we were talking about here.
Right.
That's what's going to go in the book, my experiences, and, little vignettes like I keep adding here to the reader, kind of, or here, the person who's watching, listening, so that I can help guide people to help themselves. Yeah. So the first book is get rid of your garbage, what doesn't serve you anymore. Understand it, get to terms with it, accept it, which you can't change, and move on and say, what did I learn from that? You always learn something, so it's not a waste. What did I learn from that experience?
And I think something that was very powerful while you were speaking that was resonating with me as well is, even though it's my search for my understanding, it really isn't about me, right? It's about stepping outside or beside myself for a moment and trying to, with compassion and understanding, whether I agree or not, to understand the other person, because there should be no room for judgment. Therefore, it shouldn't matter whether you're agreeing or not. It's that compassion layer that, in society, we're just missing right now hard. And I think that that's a beautiful, very powerful message. So many layers to what you just said is powerful.
And at another time, my dad had shared with me some vignettes from his lifetime. Really quick, he was sent to Panama during World War II. He said, I'm standing, of course, they're all New Yorkers. They've been, so they were meeting at a subway platform, his dad and him, waiting for the train to take my dad away. And my dad's wondering in his mind if he'd ever see his father again, right? They'd ever meet. In fact, they didn't, because his father died while he was away. Anyway, so they're on a platform, and my father said he had wished he'd gotten a hug from his dad.
Yeah.
And his dad wouldn't do it. That helped him understand how I needed hugs too.
And it also helped him understand why he hadn't.
Because he, as a man, all the nurturing was for women to do.
Exactly.
His job was to bring in the bacon, keep everybody safe and sound, and all their needs met. That's what he did it.
Yeah.
He did it well. We had everything we needed. Fancy vacations and all that. No. Did we want for anything? No.
Yeah.
So there was no faulting him. I needed to understand him. That's all I needed. And we had a meeting of the minds, understanding where each one was coming from, and met in the middle, and it's fine. And and he passed away. And of course, my mother did by now. So that was interesting. So that's part of the book. but the big part is the watching how and what lengths I would go to
Yeah.
to continue trying to get answers. So that's what the book's about. And it's for people to, again, bring it into your life and what can you do with this information to clean up any messes and stuff like that. And it's important to do that. And it's important for you to move forward without these things hanging on you and preventing you going forward. And that's what's happening a lot. People's memories of this, that, and the other thing. And they bring that into the next relationship. But that guy is not the guy you were with. Okay. So stop waiting for the same thing to happen. It's not fair to them. I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
I'm somebody different, but yes. Anyway, there's a lot there. And I'll just say at this point, you can get it readily on other platforms. And Barnes and Nobles had no problem with me. So the ebook is there. And I'm just about to this weekend, hopefully, get the second edition unloaded on both ends. You can get the second edition in the ebook now, but I had a few things I wanted to go back and forth with the editor and little tweaks to do for the second in the book. And it's really, I think at least 70% of the people out there like myself, they still want a book, not everything on their computer to look at or tablet to look at. Mm-hmm. So the book it'll be ready for the level 2 section soon. I have got to sit down and finish. I'm almost done. It's like I put it in there, the revised manuscript, and then it's just got to go through the channels. And then the magic of publishing now is you order the book, that's when they print on demand now. Yeah, it's like the authors used to have to get, if you want to have, 24 books and pay for each one of them to hand out or whatever. In this case, no. And then as an author, if anybody else is listening, that's an author or wants to be, if you hook up with Barnes and Noble, you can individually go to each of their stores and ask to go do a talk.
Nice.
So talk like we're doing now, I can do at any of the Barnes and Nobles. If they, put me on their schedule, they'll advertise for you. So that's the next step I'm going to be going to get more public with this and invite conversations. And the last time about forgiveness, I had a talk with a psychotherapist there. So then you have the clinical. I thought that was important to have my end and then the clinical because people are going to bring up their situations. Great. It was supposed to last from 6:30 to 8. We were there till 10 p.m. and we regretfully left. It's a big subject. It's a big subject. So, So thank you for bringing up the book. I'll show you the book title. That's the new book cover from the original one you'll see Amazon. Because when I decided to pull away from them, they said, oh, no, then you need a new book cover. Okay. Excuse me, you had nothing to do with the decision of what was going to be the book cover and who was going to do it. A friend of mine did it. She did the first one. It was like we were telepathically connected. It was amazing. I showed up to see what she was doing. We had a slight tweak and it was perfect. This one, I just let her do it.
That's
and
lovely.
emphasize the angelic or spiritual connection. So she put lots of feathers there. Behind the person.
Gorgeous.
I was definitely guided. Yeah, some people said they liked the second version of the cover better. So I was definitely guided through it. And in the end, as I say, it's because I was supposed to put it out there for people to heal themselves.
Yeah.
Made a huge difference in my life. Yeah.
That is awesome. I'm very excited to read it. Well, unless there was anything else you wanted to bring up, I think for me, I would love to ask if you had any affirmation or mantra, words of wisdom, piece of advice you'd like to leave our listeners with.
Do not hesitate to ask for help from spiritual sources. We have pretty much all known the concept of guardian angels. You do have them. They are there to assist, but you always have your own free will. And reach out to them to help connect you with the experiences and the people that you need to meet to guide you each step of the way. And keep their mind wide open for the unexpected. And often what's unexpected is what those guys are presented to you. So put it out there and thank them for being a part of your life. And be grateful for all that you do have in your life and the support you have around you physically for the people that you care about, friends and family. Thanks for this opportunity.
That was so beautiful.
Susan.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks for diving into the depths with us today. If you enjoyed this episode, show your support at buymeacoffee.com/Mystical Mermaid Lounge, as every little ripple helps keep the magic flowing. Would you like some more deep, soul yearning conversations? Well, then swim on over to our sister podcast, Past Lives Cafe, where Chione deep dives into those past life experiences. Also, we'd love to hear from you. Please don't forget to rate and review and drop your feedback and comments at our website, mysticalmermaidlounge.buzzsprout.com. Thank you again so much. And don't forget to catch us at the next high tide. Bye-bye.